command center during the previous United Workers' Party administration. Dominic Fedee.
Thank you very much to the moderator this afternoon. I want to specially recognize, it's this morning, sorry, our political leader, Honorable Alan Chastney, also the member from Micoud South, and the firebrand amidst us here this morning, Senator Ferropolius from Dennery North. I want to also recognize in the audience the Deputy Leader of the United Workers' Party in another firebrand lady, Fortuna Belrose. We have our Hall of Fame member, Mr. Sleepy, Mr. Skinny, and then the former mayor of Canaries. Other members of the press, thank you for being here this morning, and of course you looking at us live on Facebook. Now, today it is unfortunate that we've had to come back to speak to you so quickly, because we thought that after our press conference last week and how forcibly we would have brought over some of the points and our loud cry for there to be a quick response, a proactive approach for the government to deal with this very dark hour in our country, we see very little or no response from the current administration. In fact, since we last spoke to you, things have gotten progressively worse. We see the level of victimization continues to happen. We see the level of petty politicking rather than governing the country persisting. And we see as well a number of empty promises continue to face the people of St. Lucia. But all that in the middle of the fifth wave of COVID-19. Information that was disclosed from the Ministry of Health suggests that to date there are over 4,000 infections that have happened in a short period of a matter of weeks. The average daily case per day is 136 infections we see happening. Unfortunately, and I do not intend on politicizing this, but I think it would be very remiss of me if I did not express our deepest sympathy to the families who are grieving today, because the stats suggest that in the last month or so, 18 St. Lucians have passed away due to COVID-19. This is a total of 314 since the pandemic began. St. Lucia now leads the OECS in the number of deaths. In fact, this administration has presided over 230. It would mean that within a short 5 months, they would have surpassed the total sum of deaths in any other OECS country. This, ladies and gentlemen, points to the quantum mismanagement with which they have presided over the management of COVID-19. And when we speak, they say that we're politicizing COVID. But all we're asking for is for an urgency of now so that we can prevent more of our family members, of those that we love, of those that we care about. We're just pleading. We're using our collective voices to sound an urgency of now, so that if we can just do one thing, is to prevent more of our families from dying, more of our citizens from getting sick. To date, we have some 3,349 active cases. It would mean that everyone in St. Lucia knows someone who is infected with COVID-19. Just today, our PR team have reported that many media houses are unable to be here because they're dealing with short staff due to the high levels of infections that we're seeing. But this does not only affect our colleagues in the media. This also impacts bus drivers, frontliners. It impacts teachers. And my colleague will deal with the education system and the impact that COVID is having on that sector. But it impacts hotel employees, law offices. It impacts every single sector in our country today is feeling the pinch from this government's mismanagement of the pandemic. We see that vaccination rates continues to be stubbornly low. Some 50,000 individuals, or less than 30% of our population, is fully vaccinated. In the booster shots, the latest information we've received suggests that just 5,552, a very small percentage of our population, that have been vaccinated. And so here are the two extremes. A rapid rise in the number of cases, a lack of quarantine facilities, and a high number of individuals that are largely exposed due to vaccinations. I saw the explanation given by some of our stakeholders that the Omicron variant is not as, they say, devastating as other variants, while it is highly transmissible. However, the disruption that this is causing throughout the world, and indeed the Caribbean, is at unacceptable and untenable levels. And something needs to be done so that we can lessen the disruption that it is causing on our social and economic fabric in our country. There remains no confirmation of Omicron in St. Lucia. It is sad that after so long that we cannot tell the people of St. Lucia for sure what we are dealing with. Or we ourselves really don't know, but we can only suspect that we are dealing with the new variant. What is taking us so long? The government cannot continue to shoot in the dark as it has. If you don't know what enemy that you're fighting, you are going to lose the war. No wonder we continue to see that this variant or this fifth wave is wreaking havoc on our population. And while we do so, there's no sense of urgency from the leadership. There's no national crisis, no sounding of the alarm. They are now blaming you, the people of St. Lucia. They're now saying that you are totally responsible for your well-being and your health. They have now passed the buck because what their own supporters have recognized, that there is no leadership ability in the tank or in the cabinet. In fact, in the words of a well-known supporter of the SLP, he suggested in a tape that went viral that SLP supporters and the people of St. Lucia should not expect any dynamism from the current Prime Minister and the cabinet. He suggested that the Prime Minister is at best a transitional leader. That's what he said. He's just there to transition. He's just there to take the party from one period to another. These are not our words. These are the words of a very influential SLP insider. And so no wonder we continue to see the people of St. Lucia are losing confidence in this administration. No wonder we see that business is losing confidence in this administration. No wonder we continue to see that there is a high and rising level of anxiety all across this country. But as the failure to deal with COVID-19 continues, we also see that this government, they are presiding over unprecedented levels of victimization. And we have to continue talking about this week after week because we are getting daily reports of people being victimized purely on the basis of which political party they support. I have never seen the level of victimization happen in this country in the history of our democracy. And so when we look at what is happening blatantly, contractors are losing their contracts because they're deemed or have been deemed to be supporters of the UWP. They continue to fire village council and city council workers across the country. Caregivers are losing their jobs in droves. The caretakers who cut the grass at the side of the road continue to lose their jobs. The farmers now, the agriculture sector are now the latest victims of victimization, where several farmers island-wide are being decertified because they seem to be UWP supporters. Even their own board members cannot escape the wrath of the SLP's guillotine. We see that on social media, their board members are being victimized for simply expressing a dissenting view about the direction in which statutory bodies should go in this country. All of this while they remain quiet about employees within their camp, supporters of the SLP that have displayed clear evidence where they threaten to kill citizens of this country. This really cannot continue. And instead of dealing with COVID-19, we continue to see empty promises. When will the people of St. Lucia see the 1-5 promise by the Prime Minister while in opposition, and has now said that he didn't say that while in opposition, of 1,005 in income support? He said that the 500 which the previous UWP administration had given, it was too small. And immediately upon returning into office, the SLP would ensure that they would give 1,005. Excise taxes for fishermen was promised as well. They are still waiting in Anse la Raye. They're still waiting in Canaries, Mr. Prime Minister, on your empty promises. All tax refunds below 5,000 was promised to all citizens within 100 days of being elected. Have those promises been met, or was just an election gimmick? Was it just like you're scared of closing the borders because you thought that the tourism industry, or you convinced the people that the tourism industry was the industry that was bringing the virus to St. Lucia, and that the people of St. Lucia were at continuous risk as a result of tourists coming to the country? Today, we see a different story. We see an administration that is proud to pretend as if the current successes we're seeing within the tourism industry had anything to do with them. And so we feel extremely vindicated in the UWP that we took the hard decisions and we did the right thing to balance between lives and livelihoods by ensuring that the tourism sector remained open. And I'm very, very proud to suggest and to say that at the time when we had left, we went from 0 jobs to recovering some 8,500 jobs within the tourism sector. And so those jobs, because of your lack of foresight, because of your lack of ability to anticipate, because of this current administration's inability to look at the future and preempt the challenges of the sector, we're seeing that the projected bookings for the winter season are now waning. Hotels are reporting significant declines in cancellations, in lower occupancies than expected. Some of the major hotels, when they would normally be at a 90% to 100% at this time of the year, are struggling with a 70-75% in occupancy levels. This would mean that they need less employees. And so some hotels have already begun the process of laying off employees. The question to this government: what is the plan to cushion the blow so that this Omicron variant will cause less pain on less people within our country? Something must happen now. What is the new marketing campaign? What are the new measures that the tourism minister will implement to ensure that people that may not have the confidence to travel, what are we going to do within the spread and the spiraling of Omicron variant and the fact that crew members are getting sick on airlines? What are we going to do to ensure that this has as little as possible an impact on our tourism sector, on the employees of the sector, on the small businesses that depend on the industry for its very survival? What are we going to do about those initiatives? How are we going to drive confidence so that the travel community internationally would look at St. Lucia's protocols? What's the plan in the new trend where we see that the UK, for example, has just announced that people coming to the UK does not require to be tested. Vaccination travelers don't have to be tested. Is St. Lucia going to follow suit? Will the rest of the Caribbean jurisdictions follow suit? Will we stand alone? Or will we just react as usual to a bad situation? And so when we talk about the lack of leadership, these are the issues that we're referring to. We were told by this administration while in opposition that there were two St. Lucias. They said that there was one for the tourists and one for the locals. But I have in my possession, if the leader can just help me, a copy of the latest protocols. And in the latest protocols, we see that there are two St. Lucias. We see clearly that there are exemptions in what you can and you cannot do, what locals can do and what tourists can do. This is plain here in Section 6 of the new protocols. And so I am not by any means expressing that we do not understand there's a need for there to be a specialized and targeted approach to the fight of COVID-19. What we were saying all along is that this was necessary so that we can reduce the impact on the effect that COVID-19 would have on our economy, so that we can create more jobs, so that we can create more opportunities for businesses, so that we can secure a very strong market for our farmers, so that our taxi drivers can have as many trips as possible, and so that our retail sector, which depend on the industry, that they would remain in business. And which is another reason why we went ahead and we very aggressively and ambitiously brought back the cruise ships so that our vendors can get many more opportunities to be able to sell their produce. It's a shame that the vendors have not been able to benefit as much as they should. And I feel it for my friend Ras Iper, the president of the Vendors Association, who continues to do a tremendous job in making his voice heard for the hundreds of vendors that he represents. And so I call on the government to institute NEMAC meetings again, so that people like Ras Iper, so that the teachers who have expressed anxieties about school reopening, the teachers' unions, the churches, and everyone can come together and discuss the salient matters that are related to the management of COVID-19. This cannot be a secret, or this cannot just be the cabinet of ministers deciding what is going to happen and what the new protocols are going to be and what the new approach will be. Judging by the cabinet's leadership and management of this process, we cannot continue to trust them. We cannot continue to trust them for consistency. We cannot trust them for integrity, or we cannot trust them that they will ensure that the first science will be the health science, the economic science, to protect our lives, to protect our health, and to protect our jobs. What we continue to see is this government pandering to various sectors. This government trying to please as many demographics as possible to ensure that their political advantage is sustained. But you know what? There comes a time, and that time is already now, when people have already rejected this administration, when they've already rejected your piecemeal approach to leadership on the various issues that are affecting the country right now. But I go back to that important issue of there being two St. Lucias, where the government has clearly broken its promises about having special treatment for the tourism industry. And this continues to happen. And what we're saying is that the United Workers' Party feels extremely vindicated that you had to go back and to do the very same things that we did, but only is that we did them better, and we were willing to sacrifice any political advantage at the altar so that we can create jobs, we can save as many people as possible. We left a very good foundation for you. The COVID-19 respiratory hospital was already established. The Cuban Medical Brigade was already here in St. Lucia. We set up the protocols to reopen the tourism industry. We instituted income support. We beefed up the testing capacity of the country. And what you have done in 5 short months is that the SLP administration has squandered all of the great work that we have done. Now you are always caught with yourselves off guard. You're always surprised by spikes and never ahead of what is taking place in this country. And so today the call is for better leadership. Today the call is for more decisive and visionary leadership. Today the call is for more courageous leadership. And we continue to see that when there's a lack of vision in a government, that people all across a nation continue to perish. We cannot take any more of this administration. We call on you to do your jobs. Stop blaming the police. It's not the police that need to do more about crime. It is you that have to lead from the front and stop protecting your friends. Start by showing a good example. Start with the cabinet of ministers. Start to show the people that as a prime minister, that you will set an example and that you have a zero tolerance for suspected fellows. You cannot be saying to people that you have a zero tolerance for crime, and then there is a minister within your cabinet that doesn't have a visa. You cannot be saying to people that you have a zero tolerance for crime, and then there's another minister who's embroiled in a pension scandal. You cannot say that you have a zero tolerance on criminality when another minister in your cabinet made a false declaration to the customs. Lead by example and stop passing the buck. You are the ones that the people elected to lead the country. It is time you do your jobs and stop passing the buck. I thank you very much for your indulgence.